So I've been checking out my previous tutorials on how to do different stuff, and I specifically looked at how to add lighting to your sprites, and I came to one conclusion. That shit is almost impossible to do. Well, I mean, it is possible, I did it, but it's pretty complicated, and it takes a very, very, very long time to do all that. So, what have I done? I have searched far and wide, and I have found a forum and a plugin that can actually be installed to paint.net and make this process a lot easier to follow. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do now. So I found this plugin here, the Boltbait GPU Accelerator plugin pack for Paint.net 5. Updated recently. So with this, we're going to focus on one single tool, which is this one right here, the Inner Shadow tool. This tool alone is going to help. It's going to be a big help to us. It's going to be a big help because this alone does so much of what we would need to do if we were using the old method of having to go from Paint.net and having to jump all the way to GIMP and stuff. It's going to reduce so much, and I'm going to show you. It's going to be very easy, guys. Very easy. So what we're going to do is download it, and it's going to unzip. So we're going to, from here, open the file, and we're going, okay, I don't want to buy this. Okay, so we're going to simply extract it. Yes. And once that is done, we simply open it up and install it like this. So it's gonna show you some warnings. Yeah, we're gonna quit that. So this is what you're gonna see in the installation. So it's not that complicated. You could everything's already selected, so all you have to do is agree to the terms and conditions, and you can select install everything or install unselected. I like to press install. I already have Paint.net running and I already have it installed, so it would just be an install straightforward. Then you could simply close it and open Paint.net. Okay, so now moving to Paint.net. So we're going to do this with a simple sprite. We're going to put myself in the Natsumi stage. How about that? We're going to put myself in the Natsumi stage. And this is how it's going to work. So, first thing is first, analyze. You're going to need to analyze the environment you are on. For example, this stage, Natsumi stage. You can see it's pretty dark. It has a bunch of red lights, well, LED strips, we could call it that way. That they're focusing, the light is bouncing off them and onto the people that are on the stage. If you've watched my Ultra Bass Redux, which I definitely recommend you to watch, by the way, it's one of my best remixes of my own songs that I've made so far. Yeah. You're gonna notice the shading technique there is pretty simple, and especially with the dynamic of the stage, it's very versatile in how the shading adapts to different lighting environments. That can also be done with this tool. So, to begin, firstly, after we analyzed our stage, that we noticed that it has some dark aspects, that there's light bouncing off of it, that's very important. We have to note. So, our first step, I want you to note down, analyze what your stage looked like. If your stage has a sunset, you're normally going to find a sunset in the background. So that means that the front part of your character is going to always be dark, and the back part of it is always going to have that shiny outline, just like how we've seen it in Getaway. If you've seen my last video, Getaway has this exact same shading style. So now that we've analyzed, we're going to go in and start editing our sprite. So first thing we've noticed, that here the darkness, it has a certain light contrast. So what we're going to do is go to adjustments, and we're going to move down to here where it says brightness and contrast. So this is where our most editing takes part. So this is going to level out the is going to start setting the ambient or the canvas where we're going to be putting our light onto. So, to begin, well, to proceed actually, we're going to tone down the brightness a little, and also the contrast. Tone it down to something comfortable, something comfortable, something that is not too extravagant. So we're gonna leave it at that. So, yeah, something like this. Just be sure to always compare the amount of darkness that your map has with the sprite you're trying to you gotta really the main key in this thing is balance. Keep that in mind. Balance. So after adding the brightness and contrast, we're going to duplicate the layer. This is where it gets where it gets a lot easier. So we're going to duplicate the layer one time, and we're going to go here to effects, up here, effects, and we're going to move down to where it says here object. So effects, object, and we're going to look for the tool that says inner shadow, and here it is. See, made by Boltbait. So we press the inner shadow, click that, and then here it takes us to this menu that takes us basically to the entire menu in how to add in the inner shadow. So we move to options, and you see by default the color is technically, black. You could change the color here. You can change it to white. Make the lighting color you want. As we see, Natsumi stage is red, so we're going to add some red lighting. And now here is where it gets interesting, because you also need to analyze where the light source is. Wherever the light source is, that's where your shading will be placed on your sprite. For example, if you checked out Dewarmed Redux, you're going to notice that the lighting in those two sprites are completely dependent on where the light's coming from. You see, Mr. Z has the red lighting from on the back part of his sprite, and you see Apfel is both surrounded by pink and blue, because on the stage that's where the light sources are. Pink in the front and blue in the back, or was it pink in the back and blue in the front? So after you've derived where the light is coming from, or where your light source is, you're going to have to use here in the shadow tab to define where that shit is gonna go. So with this slider here that says length, you can control the amount, the length of where your or the amount of lighting that's gonna be applied into your character. I like to put it to the max because, well, it already looks pretty like that, and trust me, that looks nice. God damn, I have to curse my own character. Okay, so yeah, so the length controls the basically you could say the size, and it already looks good if you notice it. Now, moving this other slider, the strength determines, let's say, it determines basically how hard the light or how hard the shadow will be cast upon the character. Now, this slider depends a lot on the distance of the light source. It depends on your tastes, but if we're talking in a more logical point, yeah, light sources that are farther away to the character are going to be weaker than light sources that are closer to the character, we're just gonna be directly on them. So, for keepsake, for convenience, we're gonna keep it at 0.075. And we're gonna keep the length all the way to the max. Now, your angle, like I said, depends on where the position of your light is. Now, like in the Natsumi stage, the light is is immediately behind the character. So, angling, setting the light's angle to face Apfel's back, and it completely, like I said, depends on where your light source is. So this should be the setting. Now, before you click OK, there's one last thing you have to do. Now, go back to the options tab and uncheck this box that says keep background. What this does is that this eliminates Apfel from the actual shading, which will only keep the shading there, and it'll only be a layer above the actual sprite that is underneath. Let me explain. So once we uncheck the keep background and click OK, the tool will process it and the results are going to be there. Now, if you notice, there's two layers. There's going to be two layers here. you have the Apfel layer, and you have the shading layer. Now, why did we uncheck the keep background? Because if we had the keep background checked, we could disable Apfel, and we would still have Apfel with the layer here. So unchecking that actually does help out a lot. Once you uncheck that, you make it a lot more easier for you. So just like that, we could simply just take it and then just place him right on here. And you notice that it does that already looks sort of good, but there's still some touches we need to add here, because there's also considering the ambience, which is the next part that we're going to look at. So after you have the shading, normally, since Paint.net is still pretty limited and it doesn't have as much blend modes as GIMP does, this would work fine. This would definitely work fine. You could also play around with it by play around with the blend modes by double clicking the layer you want to configure, and you can select the different blend modes there that exist. For example, there's this one, multiply. There's additive. Additive actually looks good. Additive really does look good. There's other ones you could try, like reflect, which also has its certain aesthetic. Glow as well. Overlay, which is better used. Overlay is best used with white lighting, by the way. It's best used with white lighting. Maybe different. You can also try screen, and yeah, you can play around with it. So we're gonna keep it at additive for now. So once you have it at additive, you can play around with it. You could duplicate more and strengthen the lighting, or you could, it depends on a lot of your taste. It depends on your taste. Okay, now that we have the lighting done, we could try playing around, and you could add more layers. For example, you could duplicate the layer again. You could move it up. You could go back to the object, sort of FX object, inner shadow. And then instead of red, you could add a white, and then you could make it stronger, but then you could lower it down a little like this. And then you could double click this. You could try it to additive, you could try to multiply, you could try to overlay as well. Yeah, so there's a bunch of ways you can play around with this. Yeah. Okay. There's a bunch of ways you can play around with this. Okay. Now, that part alone already saves you a lot of time in having to take your sprite, going over to GIMP, going over to GIMP, doing different stuff. The clip thing, the blend modes and stuff. This saves you a lot of time, and it's pretty easy to use as well. So after this is done, you're going to add the ambience. Now, what the ambience is that environment color that is given to you that makes the sprite blend in with the actual map. For example, when we wanted to do the sunset, we used dark purple, which would give it a sense of darkening, give a sense of a dark layer in contrast to the actual light that is from behind. That it also works a lot. So if we analyze again the stage, Natsumi stage has a lot of red, so the ambience thus will be red as well. So now, what can we do to make an ambience without having to use the clip mode and stuff? Now, first thing to do this, you would have to duplicate the original sprite layer. So duplicate that, and then you could either go to adjustments and here to hue and saturation, or you could press Ctrl-Shift-U and would bring up this menu. Now, ignore the hue slider, ignore the saturation slider, but you're gonna want to turn down the lightness, either black or either white. Totally depends on you. Both of them, as long as it's a solid color, it doesn't matter. So what you're gonna do is you either choose what side you want to use. You either use white or use black. I'm gonna use black. Then you go switch to the paint bucket tool, and then here in the color wheel you can select either well, you select the color of the ambience that you're gonna set. In this case, it's gonna be red. So then afterwards, well, for convenience, we're gonna disable the lighting. We're gonna disable the lighting layer, and on the black sprite, the silhouette of your sprite, you're going to dump the paint bucket on it, and now he's red. Now you're going to either double click on the silhouette layer, and you're either gonna want to turn down the opacity, but you're gonna first turn on the opacity, yeah, to a comfortable number. Could be around 150, 200, yeah. I'm gonna keep it at 120, and then you're gonna change the blend mode to multiply. Now this, what it does is that it blends the silhouette with the actual sprite underneath, and gives you that reddish hue or X hue that you want, that of whatever color you use. So now, activating again the red layer, now you see that it has a lot more, it's starting to look a lot more like the stage. So now, for aesthetic reason, I like to make Apfel's eyes glow. So as we used last time, we just switch the magic wand, hold down control and use the mouse wheel to scroll up, and just select his eyes. Then we would simply control C, then above the lighting layer, add a new one, and then just paste. You can also play around with this by duplicating the eye layer, going to effects, going to blurs, and coming here to this tool named Gaussian blur. And you could add in, by just adjusting the radius slider, you can make his eyes glow. And just something cool to show. So, yeah. So now, once all of this is done, and you could test out your sprite on a stage to see if it would hold up. So let's do that. So you press Ctrl-Shift-F to flatten it all down. You press Ctrl-A to select it all. C to copy it, then move over to your stage. Add a new layer, and Ctrl-V. And as you can see, it pretty much has the same lighting of the stage, and the ambience is pretty much the same. And the same results here would have the same results as if you would use the old method in GIMP. So it's pretty straightforward. Install the plugin, open paint.net, go to Effects, Object, Inner Shadow, set the inner shadow. Remember to uncheck the keep background. Duplicate the original sprite, the base sprite. Turn that duplicate of the sprite into a silhouette. Take the paint bucket, grab a random color of what you need. Dump the paint bucket on the sprite. Lower the opacity, and change the blend mode. Pretty straightforward. I really hope this one is a lot easier, and I hope that you guys can really benefit from this, because I've seen some of your sprites, and trust me, they're impressive. So yeah, that's been this other shitty tutorial. So thanks for watching, guys.